So what has changed since we last spoke was Scott Michael Green was found in Dallas County. It's my understanding he was found near the 100-mile marker of Interstate 80, off on a rural gravel road. The conditions that he was taken into custody, as they explained to me, was he flagged down an employee of the DNR, presented his ID to that employee, and asked that employee call 911. That employee did that. Deputies from the Dallas County Sheriff's Office and troopers from the Iowa State Patrol responded. Mr. Green was taken into custody without incident. He did complain of some kind of flare-up related to an existing medical condition, so he's been taken to the hospital just as a precaution. There were no injuries of any officers or Mr. Green during the arrest. As explained to me, it went without incident. At this time, that's really all we know. He's going to be eventually brought here. He'll be interviewed by our detectives once he's well enough to make a statement, and then we'll move forward from there. Like I said, if there are any formal charges that come today, we'll update you right away. The officers that were involved in this site, we're ready to identify those folks. On the Des Moines Police Department side, that was Sergeant Anthony Beminio. He goes by Tony, and he's been with us since 2005. He had some prior service at another local police department prior to that. He was promoted last year. He's a great guy in this department, a good friend to a lot of us, a fantastic family man. It's just really hard to lose Tony. Chief McCarty will speak a little bit about the Urbandale officer killed. I'll give you his name, is Officer Justin Martin. It's my understanding he's been an employee of the Urbandale Police Department since 2015. And Chief McCarty will speak a little bit further about him. The last piece that we absolutely wanted to address up front is we have received a ton of questions about a YouTube video out there. We're not going to talk about it right now. We don't know if it's a relevant piece to our current investigation. We don't know if it has any value to our current investigation just yet. Once our detectives get a chance to look at it, examine it, see what's in it, and then we'll be a little bit more in a better position anyway to speak a little more educated about that video. We don't have time right now to take a look at it. They're going to take a look at it. They'll go through it and see if it's relevant to what's going on right now. I know that it's a little historical piece, so we can't confirm if that's even Mr. Green in that video or not right now. And I think that's it, unless you have any questions about what I just said.
Can you spell the last name of the one officer?
Beminio, and it's Anthony.
Do you have his age?
Not right now.
Did you say Dustin or Justin?
Justin, Justin.
And Martin, the way you would spell Martin.
Yes.
The officer went by Tony?
Yep, Tony.
Okay. Video?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Officer Dominio?
Well, like I said, he was promoted last year. He's served on our First Watch Patrol. I worked with him on Midnight Patrol for several years. He was on our tactical unit. He was a school resource officer for quite a while. And his last stop before being promoted, he was a robbery homicide detective up in our person section. So, very popular officer, like I said, solid performer. Yeah.
So there was a truck found in the woods near where
Don't know anything
was
about it.
arrested?
Don't know anything about it. Sorry. They haven't
Tell us
updated.
if Mr. Green had any weapons on him when he was arrested?
He did not.
So he was just walking along the gravel road, and he was talking about the circumstances of it?
That's how all of it we were explained to us right now. He was just walking down the road, flagged down a DNR employee. I don't think it was a DNR officer. Flagged down a DNR employee, presented his driver's license to him, told him to call 911. From there, the responding deputies took him into custody without incident.
Does he have priors?
I haven't had a chance to look.
I think earlier you said these were ambush-style shootings. Can you say anything more about that? I guess that leaves a lot to, what one might think occurred. Is there anything you can say more specific?
What we can tell by looking at the scene is that it doesn't appear that either officer had an opportunity to interact with the suspect. It doesn't look like there was an exchange of conversation. It doesn't look like there was an opportunity. There definitely wasn't an opportunity for these officers to defend themselves or respond to the attack. Both officers were seated in their cars and were shot while they were sitting.
Were they shot from the front or the back?
They were shot while they were sitting in their cars.
You know who recorded the first one or how you first came to know it occurred?
The Urbandale incident was called in by neighbors in the area who heard gunfire.
Were the cars in the process of being driven when this happened?
You asked me if they were moving at the time?
Yes.
We know that Sergeant Beminio's car was stopped. We don't know, or I don't know right now about Officer Martin's car.
Was Sergeant Dominio in the area for any particular reason, or was it just on normal?
Just on patrol.
Can you give us any more idea on the proximity of Mr. Green to the officers when this happened?
You know physically where he was when he did this? No, we don't know that yet.
Is there any feeling that the first officer or 102 was targeted specifically? As
I
a
think
real
both
police
of them.
or-
Are you talking about was Officer
Like-
Martin targeted because he was Officer Martin?
Exactly.
There's nothing to indicate that, but if that comes out as we move forward, that'll be definitely something we'd like to talk about.
Do you know if either of these officers had interaction with this person?
There's nothing to indicate that at all.
And do you know, I don't know these officers, but it was race an issue that you believe at all because this
Everybody
man-
involved is white.
Okay, thank you.
You mentioned the way that they've attacked was from the side, they didn't have a chance to defend themselves. Any weapon that you could mention at this point?
I didn't say anything about the side. I said they were seated in their car and they didn't have a chance to defend themselves. So are you talking about the weapon used?
Yeah.
No, we can't talk about that.
Based on the shell casings, do you know how many shots were fired at each?
There's plenty of physical evidence there that will tell us later how many shots were fired. Some of it we're going to have to take a look at. You know, we might have a hole in a car and an unaccounted for shell casing that might be in a vehicle or a pocket or something like that. We don't know.
Are we talking about a few shots though? Or
Several
dozens?
shots at both scenes.
Multiple shots.
Did the DNR employee that he approached recognize him?
I haven't had a chance to understand exactly how their conversation went, but it's my understanding he presented his ID, so I don't know if he knew that we were looking for him or not.
Was there any video that you were able to look at, either from in-car or body camera video?
That we haven't determined that yet either. That's all evidence at the scenes is still being gathered.
Can you talk a little bit of how you focused in on Mr. Green originally, how he came?
He's just somebody that was known to law enforcement. The leads that we started developing at the scene pointed us in his direction. The more leads came in, the more the detectives determined that he was definitely somebody we wanted to talk to.
You referenced
What
a
kind of
YouTube
leads?
video, but was there just any other kind of warning that, you know, Green might have planned to do this in terms of other online threats or letters or phone calls or anything of that nature?
We haven't discovered anything yet, but again, we're only about 7 or 8 hours into this.
What
Can
kind
you
of
say
leads
how
were you
he
talking
was
about?
known to law enforcement?
Sergeant, what kind of leads were there, witnesses?
We can't
to-
talk about that. It'd be critical to his prosecution if it gets to that point.
Do you believe he was acting alone, or are you looking for possible accomplices?
There's nothing to indicate right now that there was anybody else involved.
Was there any recent domestic charges in his past with any relatives?
I don't know anything about his criminal past.
You said Tony was a school resource officer. Do you
Yes.
remember where?
I believe he did both East and Roosevelt.
Knowing how quickly you guys were able to come to this conclusion today, what is the sense that you guys have right now being able to have this suspect in custody?
Well, it's a great sense of relief, not just for us. I mean, obviously he was targeting police officers is what we believe, but it's a sense of relief for the community. I mean, we don't want... Des Moines is a safe city. I mean, we've had some instances where we've had some spikes in crime. We've had some high-profile things happen. Overall, this is a very, very safe community. You know, I raised my family here. I'm sure most of the people in this room raise their families here, and none of us are getting up and moving. We got through this investigation fast because this is what we do, and we do it well. But yeah, we're very, very relieved right now that he's in custody and that there were no other police officers or civilians hurt in this incident.
Is there any fear of copycat incidents?
No, I mean, I don't know how to answer that. You look around the nation, we're not the first ones that this have happened to. You know, it's definitely something that's happened in other cities, other communities trying to deal with this. We absolutely did not think that it was going to happen here. It's always something that's in our back of our mind. We try to be as vigilant as we possibly can as we go about our business, but our community has a perfectly justified expectation to expect a certain level of service out of us, and that service be personal and you know, polite and not like an occupying army. So we do think about it, but we try to be as vigilant as we could. I can tell you that based on what I've seen so far, there was absolutely nothing either one of these officers could have done to prevent this or to save themselves once it started.
Sergeant, were these officers lured by a suspect?
There's nothing to indicate that. Neither one of them were on calls for service.
I understand you paired officers up as a precaution. Is that going to continue now that Mr. Green has been caught?
That all really depends on staffing, our staffing resources. You know, if we put officers together, in Des Moines we have a mix of 1 and 2 officer units. If we put them all together in 2 officer units, we're going to kind of diminish our presence within the city, and we don't want to neglect one place to take care of another. So as we look at our numbers and we see how that's going to play out, but I don't know if it will continue for a long period of time.
Tell us about the personal lives of officers, family, children, married?
Officer Beminio is married with children, yes.
School-age children?
I don't know.
When you face the grieving process, which doesn't happen immediately because you had the manhunt, how does this, what kinds of things do you have in place to help each other and, psychological resources, personal resources, chaplain?
That's a good question, Dan. Unfortunately, we've got some experience in this. We went down this road in March with Carlos and Susan. I think we saw then that we had one heck of a great support system in place with our peer support team that we have within the department. There were some resources from Red Cross that they shared with us with debriefings. The other agencies reached out. The city has a program in place, obviously through EAP. There's a lot of things there in place to help us when we need this. The best thing we have is that we've got a tight-knit police department with a lot of good employees who take care of each other. The peer support team is probably the best thing, and they were here as soon as I was here this morning, and they've been here all day, and they're going to continue on. So there's a lot of mechanisms in place.
When you deal with this, one of the things that happens is the contract that you have with the public is broken, in the sense that you don't want to be an occupying army, you don't want to be at odds with the public. Is there concern, or how do you get past the feeling of reticence if someone's walking up to me as a police officer, because these were just guys doing their jobs, and that somebody comes up to them, that's not supposed to be an alarm?
Yeah. What happened today, unfortunately, is something we know is a possibility when we sign up. We know that could happen. You can't let that be your guiding light as you go on about your day. Most of us trust our sixth sense. I can't even imagine what if that kicked in with these guys as fast as this happened. I don't think that it taints our officers to the point where they're not going to provide the same level of service. I don't think that this is going to impact their delivery at all. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of a tough one, but a good one.
You mentioned Chief might talk about the Urbandale.
Yes, he will. If you're done with any other questions pertaining to the investigation as it stands right now, or the arrest?
So he won't appear before a judge today, or?
I don't know.
And you'll let us know?
Typically arraignments in the morning, but we could still charge him.
Do you know if he'll be charged for first-degree murder?
We need to continue. He's in custody. He's not under arrest. He has not been charged yet. We need to have the opportunity to interview him. We're going to continue on with our investigation. Like I said, there's a lot of little pieces that put this puzzle together. Speaking with him is going to be a huge part of that. Gathering the rest of the forensic evidence at the scene. The scene of his arrest is something we're working on right now. So once we get all those pieces put together, if there's probable cause for a charge, then that charge will be filed, and then most likely, Kathy, arraignment will be in the morning.
But he's suspected of murder.
He's suspected of doing this. I don't want to speculate. He's suspected of doing this, yes.
Does he have a military background?
I don't know.
You mentioned earlier that he complained of a previous condition when he was placed under arrest. Can you expand on that?
No.
Do you know if it was mental or physical?
Physical.
You said he didn't have a weapon.
Not-
He was taken into custody. Have you guys found the weapon?
We're searching right now.
Did you say where he is now?
He's at a hospital.
Do we know his condition in the hospital?
Sick. I don't know.
Is he being guarded at the hospital?
Yes.
So once he gets released,
Yes.
you see you folks?
Yes. No more investigation questions? So I'll turn it over to Chief McCarty for now. Okay.
Thank you, Sergeant. You did a very good job. I'm Chief Ross McCarty with the Urbandale Police Department. As you all know, at this point, we've lost an officer overnight from these shooting incidences. Our officer's name, as the sergeant gave you, is Justin Martin. Justin is hometown is in Rockwell City, Iowa, where he had obtained the rank of Eagle Scout before going on to college at Simpson, where he got his degree in criminal justice. Shortly thereafter, he pursued employment with us, and we were fortunate enough to hire a very good young man. We hired him August 10th of 2015. He started his academy shortly after there, graduating last December from the academy. He spent the next 4 months going through field training with us, and this summer he was put into a one-man probationary unit. At the end of this summer, on August 22nd, we released him from probation and turned him into a one-man unit with full civil service rights to the city. We had high expectations of his future, and it's tragically been cut very short here.
How old was he?
I don't have his exact age, but I'd say he's 24.
Does he have
But I could certainly get you that age.
married or?
He's a single person, no significant others in his life. His parents and his siblings are probably the most important people next to him in his life.
Are they still in Rockwell City with his family?
Yes.
What time did he start his shift?
Came in at 7 o'clock. Our patrol works 12-hour shifts, so he would have been on until 7 a.m. when he would have been relieved.
Is there any communication between Officer Martin and dispatcher, any indication that something is wrong?
No, that was a puzzling thing about this, is that he didn't get out any idea there was any warning or fear or anything going wrong, or that he was going to make a stop or go out with anybody. It was basically stopped. It was going to proceed through an intersection when he got confronted by this gunman.
Can you give us any more information on that confrontation that
I
learned
wouldn't
about?
call it a confrontation, in that I don't think he may even ever been aware that there was a gunman next to him during that situation, but we're sorting that out.
As far as you know, did this man just walk up to the car on foot, or was it drive-by, or do you know?
Yes, we're assuming he walked up on foot.
When you say next to him, can you talk a little about the
Yes.
proximity?
Our officer took fire from the side of his vehicle, and we can't tell you how many rounds he had taken through his vehicle, but I'm pretty sure it's over 15 and under 30. DCI has been called out to do our crime scene processing for us, and they're in the process of making those determinations.
Does Mr. Green live in this area?
Mr. Green is an Urbandale resident.
Have you been called to his residence?
We're familiar with Mr. Green from our years of service. Most of the officers that have been in the city have some understanding of Mr. Green, yes.
What do you mean have some understanding?
They've taken trips to his house or delivered service to him, never to anything of this extent, though.
Was he involved recently in the domestic with one of his parents? Do you know?
Yes, he had a court action, I believe, yesterday, where him and maybe perhaps his mother were in session around 2 p.m. yesterday. I do not know the outcome of that hearing.
It was at Polk County Court, or?
I assume it was, yes.
He was the defendant?
I'm not sure. His mother and him had a disagreement over something. I don't know if it was a civil case or if it was criminal.
Does Green have any children?
Yes, he does. I don't know how many, but I do know he has a daughter that's a student at Urbandale High School.
Do
Do
you
you
live
know
with his
about
mother?
complaints made possibly by Urbandale?
No.
Sorry. Any complaints made by Urbandale schools to the Urbandale Police Department regarding Mr. Green?
Yes, there's been some issues with the Urbandale school system lately, and we've issued trespass warnings to Mr. Green, and the school system was in the process of working out what those would be, being he also had a daughter who was a student in the school, so they were setting the parameters, working through that.
Was school dismissed for the day then because of concern that he was still on the loose and could cause more problems?
Yes, that was my recommendation to the superintendent and the principal, that because we did not know his whereabouts, where he was at, and we have not been able to eliminate him as a potential suspect, that we should do our due diligence and not have school for the day.
Had he ever made threats towards this school?
Not directly, but I believe that some of the threats were indirect, and gave an overtone that it was threatening.
Does Officer Martin have any connection with that YouTube video that he was?
No, I don't think Officer Martin, with his tenure with us, really had an opportunity to interact with Mr. Green at all.
Okay.
When you say indirect threat towards the school, what does that mean? What kind of threats are you talking about?
I'm talking about we're going to get a lawyer and we're going to get this worked out, and if you don't abide what I want to do, that we're going to take this and you're going to end up in litigation, those types of things. Sometimes the threats are veiled within the request for an attorney.
Do you know if Mr. Green had any permits for weapons?
I do not know the status of that, nor do I know how he acquired the weapons that we believe he had, but we'll be looking into that, yes.
So you think he probably had more than one weapon with him at the time of the shootings?
There's indications that we believe he may have had access to more than one weapon, yes.
Was Sergeant, was the Des Moines officer also, was his vehicle also, were there rounds, like between 50 and 30 rounds? Was his car found at the same place?
I'm not sure how the sergeant from Des Moines was found. I made the scene for our shooting and was informed by a Des Moines officer who was assisting us that they had experience at shooting as well. So there was some heightened concern of whether we were setting ourselves up as coming in as a secondary units, that we could be ambushed as well.
Do you know anything about Green showing up at the Urbandale Ankeny football game, supposedly with a pit bull and causing problems there?
I don't know which football game it was, but a couple of weeks ago he did show up at a football game, but I don't recall anything about a pit bull being present with him at that game.
Is that where the trespassing charges stem from?
We never charged him with trespass. We gave him a trespass warning. So initially, if someone's not wanting a property, you got to give them a warning to cease and desist. And he left the property at our request, but he had issued the trespass warning if he would return. And in the process, he was working out through with the school officials of what are the parameters of when he could be on school grounds or not, because he obviously has a daughter who is a student there.
Do you know what he did at the game that caused him to be brought to your attention? It's understanding he had some sort of a flag, or maybe he was doing something in the stands.
I understand it was a Confederate flag, and he was waving it during the national anthem, and he had picked some people of color to wave it in front of, and although they didn't complain to us, there's people in the crowd that felt that was offensive and that he should be removed from the stadium.
Were you the officer in the video?
I don't know what video you're talking about.
Were you the officer, though, who had interactions with him at the game, or one of the officers?
No, I wasn't working the game.
Has anybody been able to search Mr. Green's home yet?
We're in the process of, the detectives are applying for warrants to go in and do some searching, yes, and probably some other places as well. Those are some things we're not really wanting to discuss of where we're going, but we want to make sure that we have something to support our allegation that he may be involved in this.
Can you tell us whether Mr. Green had a military background, or do you know anything?
I have not seen his records to know specifically, but I've heard, secondhand that he may have had a military background.
Do you know what type
But I haven't confirmed that.
Do you know what type of weapon might have been used?
In the Urbandale incident?
Yes.
We think it's possibly a .223 caliber weapon, so there's many weapons that could shoot that round, and we're trying to determine what he may have had access to with that weapon.
Can you give us his address?
I do not know his address as I stand here, but I do know it's somewhere around Roseland and 70th Street.
Did your officers who were at that football game who encountered him, did they give you kind of a blow-by-blow account of the nature of the encounter with him, if he was aggressive or violent or angry or made any threats to them? Did they tell you what happened that night?
He said he was invoking his First Amendment rights and that we were trampling on them. We told him that, the officers told him that he's on private property, and the people who were in charge of that property did not want him on there, so he left the school grounds but used the public sidewalks to continue his demonstration.
But he left willingly after asked by officers?
Yeah,
Or
he
the
did,
officers had to use any force?
Yes. In the past, he's been pretty compliant to our officers and what their requests are.
I think there was an incident in court records in 2014 in which he apparently had a weapon. Do you know of that incident at all? Are you aware of it?
I have not looked through his entire history lately, and I'm not denying what you're saying, but I haven't had a privilege to sit there and actually look at his record or our old trips of what it is. But
Chief, you're a small department. How do you keep your 50 people in a position to continue to do their jobs while facing this level of grief?
well, it's definitely difficult to us. One of the things that we have done that the sergeants talked about already was we've emulated Des Moines PD's peer support system and tried to put that in place. But we also have Red Cross services for these types of incident managements, as well as some local psychologists that are willing to come in and give of their time. And then, of course, as he mentioned, EAP services.
Have you ever in your career, whether Urbandale or beyond, lost an officer in the line of duty?
No, I was hoping to finish my career without having to go through this.
To be clear, he was an officer or sergeant?
He was an officer.
So do we happen to know who the weapon was even registered to?
Pardon me?
Do we know who the weapon was registered to?
No, we haven't run it. We're in the process of reviewing what weapons he could have had and whether they're registered weapons.
And just to be clear, no weapons have actually been recovered at this point, right?
Correct.
Will you and Sergeant Friesick be able to provide us with pictures of these two officers?
I've got them.
Sergeant Prizik has those, and probably enough background that I've just given to you to supply that. And, our intention is to release at the same time together. Thank you for coming here today.
Frank County Mayor of the City of Des Moines. I want you to know it's, with a lot of sorrow and heavy heart that I'm here, but I want you to know that we as elected officials, our city council members, are all here and trying to stay up to date. There's sort of a relationship that we have as a family between our public safety individuals and our city staff, our elected officials, and the citizens. And there's an expectation that our citizens have that they're going to be safe. And I've got to tell you, this police department performs to the highest level and the highest standards. And we're very, very proud of them and their work, but we're very sad today. This has been a tough year. And the most important thing, I think, for our citizens to know is public safety, not only in the city of Des Moines, but regionally. We collaborate directly with other public safety departments, in this case, Urbandale. We jointly worked to try to come to a resolution on this particular issue, and we'll continue to do that. That's what we do as a region. We want Iowans to be safe. We certainly want people in our metropolitan area to be safe, and we work very hard to collaborate and make sure that that happens. We now, I don't want to say stand down. It's going to be tough for our officers to continue the rest of the day, but they know that they have a job to do, and it doesn't stop because of an incident. They've got to be here 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. It's an expectation of our citizens, and they do an exemplary job of maintaining that. And I don't know that I want to take a lot of questions. I think Sergeant has covered it, but I would like to offer an opportunity for the mayor of Urbandale to make a quick statement, if you will, Bob.
Yep. Thank you, Frank. Bob Andewig, Mayor of Urbandale. Again, we stand in support of our officers and our department. Tragic day for our community, for our department, but I can't say any better than Frank just said. We're here. We're a family in Urbandale. As you said, we're a small department. But our department knows that they have our full support, and our community has the expectation that they'll be safe. So we're just here to help support our department, and we will grieve, but we will move on. So thank you.
At this point, we're going to go ahead and conclude this press conference. Sergeant Prizik and myself will update you guys with more information as it comes along and keep you informed. We plan on having another press conference tomorrow around 10 o'clock. We'll keep you all posted of that as well. At this point, unless there's any pressing questions, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you for coming.